Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Speak to Spirit. I'm your host, Julie Getzinger, and I help ambitious professionals to realize the higher purpose and meaning of their lives. As part of my Declutter Your Life program, I'm interviewing professionals in the areas of decluttering our bodies, our homes, and our relationships. This week, we're focused on decluttering our relationships, and I have a special guest, Renee Miller, here to talk about how to clean out and have healthier relationships in love. Renee is the CEO and founder of Remember Who You Are Enterprises, the Love Camp, and the Black Love Matters panel discussions. As a certified coach and trainer, it's Renee's divine assignment and joy to support women to remember who they are, learn how to embrace and own their power while staying in their feminine divine, and identify their life vision for love on purpose. Ooh, so beautiful. Welcome, Renee.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I like that person. She sounds cool.
Is that me?
I like her.
What an assignment you have. I love
I
it.
feel special about it. I do.
Beautiful. So I would love to start with just telling me a little bit more about how did you get into this work? How did you get to this path particularly?
Sure. So I've been coaching for over a decade. So it's been natural for me when I was coaching around life issues, love always came up. And then, quite honestly, because I've always been like passionate about love and excited about it, and then having my own trials and errors and struggles, it just made sense to do something that I know is so important and so necessary to bring it to the field that I'm already in, and then bring it to the people that I feel really need it so that there's more love in the world. So I just seen it as like a divine assignment based on experience, education, as well as a passion. It was like a intersection between the three.
Beautiful. And who really needs it? Who are you called to work with the most?
Man, actually, it's so funny because I feel like the whole world needs more love. When I look around, I'm like, man, if we could just all have more love in our lives. But I'm really called to support African American women and African American couples, particularly because when I think about my own struggle as a professional Black woman who was perceived in the culture to be a certain way, when we are successful, we're perceived to be a certain way. And oftentimes that's not the way that we are. And I just felt like, wow, if we could learn and offer the best of ourselves to more people, we could really receive love more. And I think for me, it's about really being able to offer the skills that are necessary, offer the resources that are necessary, be that mirror for a lot of women, to really help them to see, and particularly because we've been through a lot in our communities. I think life in general is a struggle, but I think also when you've been an African American and having some of the historical things that we've dealt with and still deal with, it does impact the relationships that we have. It impacts the family structure. And I just want to see us win. And I want to see more love in this in the world. And so for me, it is a passion project to help women that are similar to me, but also couples, because now I'm in a loving, wonderful relationship. And I know at one point I was not in a loving relationship and I was in a marriage that I was really unhappy about. And so I know all sides of the love journey. So it just makes sense to help people that I know would benefit.
Beautiful. And why
Yeah.
do you think that some people attract unhealthy love?
Ooh, that's such a loaded question.
It's a big question.
Such a loaded question. So there's a couple things, or several things. So one, I think people's definition of love comes with sometimes jaded perceptions, meaning they have context what love is, and some of what they think love is can come with unhealthy behaviors. And I personally believe that love doesn't hurt. I personally believe that love and toxicity don't exist in the same space. Some people feel like that's part of the love experience. Sometimes it does hurt, but it's not love that hurts. It's one's context about it. It's one's inability to own their worthiness. So I think first of all, it's about what do you have a context about love? What's your belief about it? Where did it start? Because a lot of us accepted beliefs about love based on our childhood, how we were loved and how we received it. So that's one thing. But I also think the worthiness and the lack of self-love that is prevalent in our lives is also what causes us to allow unhealthy love in our life, because it's kind of like an oxymoron to me, you know what I mean? Love is either healthy or it's not, you know what I mean? And so I can think of plenty of times that I was in relationships and I cared a great deal for the person. But the way they treated me was not evident of love, but they may have even said they loved me. But it didn't feel like love, but they said it was love. And I would say it was something different than love. Like even so much so that it's the belief system that people have and the lack of self-love. And then I would also say not being fully clear on what you do want. A lot of times people accept other circumstances and people in their life because maybe they get a sum of what they want. So it's like, well, I want to keep this person in my life because they do this for me. And just because they do that, it'll either change or it'll get better, or no one's perfect, or relationships take work. I see all these excuses. I was one of those people that gave excuses, but you really want to strive for healthy love, period. Like, period. Healthy love. And that doesn't mean that you won't have to work together to strengthen it and create it the way that you need it to be. But it definitely means that you have to be careful with accepting excuses for things that are not healthy and allowing them to stay that way, because that's what happens too. We get caught up in unhealthy circumstances and we make so many excuses for them that we look up and that's what has happened. Like we're in a situation where time has gone by. Um, our spirit is getting pushed down more and more, but it's a slow, subtle thing that happens a lot of times. The more we don't address it, the more it kind of just weighs on our spirit. And so for me, it's like healthy love or nothing at all.
Yeah,
That's it.
and the question that's popping into me is, if we're all born from love, created in love, born of love, we are love, why do we feel this lack of worth? And maybe not everybody, but why do some people feel that they're not worth everything that they desire?
Mm. You know, that question makes me emotional when I think about it. It makes me a little sad because I think it all starts from childhood. And if we didn't get filled up, and we didn't get a lot of us weren't told how precious we are, how amazing we are, the gift that we are. And I don't mean superficially, like we're vain. I just mean helping us to really understand who we are beyond all of these things that make us feel imperfect, you know? And then I also think religion sometimes plays a part. I think generational normalities play a part. Like, sometimes in our families, we have things that we're told that are habits that are what we think are the best thing to do, and then they perpetuate. That happens. But I think at the end of the day, understanding the worth that you are just because you exist is probably the most important thing that we can do before we seek love. It is probably the most important thing we can do before we go out in the world. And unfortunately, that's not going to happen. We go out in the world and we have to discover how much we don't feel like we're worthy. And I've seen it at every level. That's what surprised me. When I was an executive coach, because I was a life coach, then I became an executive coach, and now a love coach. And when I was an executive coach, one of the things I noticed is that people who were VPs, presidents, and like senior levels in organizations, the lack of worthiness they felt. And that surprised me because they had reached a level of success in their lives in many ways. And I say success with air quotes because to me, the most successful you can be is when you're able to do what you love and understand your worth and your value. That's success to me, you know. And so I think it's systemic, it's cultural, it's generational, it's we always say the children are messed up because of the adults. Because if you think about it, when we're children, a lot of times who we become is based on the nurturing we receive growing up in the world that we experience growing up. Because we come into the world, you know, innocent. And I know there's a spiritual component, but we come into the world innocent for the most part, you know. And then if we're not nurtured the way we need to, if we're not taught healthy love practices, then we spend a lot of our adult life figuring it out and learning to value ourselves, learning to feel worthy. And I'm in that boat. I know a lot of people that are in that boat, learning to love on ourselves. And that's the reason why I'm excited about the love camp too, because we always say you start with yourself first. You have to love on yourself and learn what self-love and self-worthiness looks like. And then you go and partner in love with someone. But if you don't start with self, you won't know the true gift and value you are at the highest level.
And do you have some practices, that you can recommend to grow in self-love if somebody, has realized that they've been in some unhealthy connections and, as they grow in self-love, like what can they do? Like anything that you would recommend that they start practicing?
Yeah, so a few things. I definitely am a big advocate for therapy. Um, at the highest level. Like if there's some severe things that they're having trouble really contextualizing and really getting clear on and releasing, I think therapy is great. Also, always ask my clients to do shadow work because shadow work is huge because it's all of those blind spots and all those inner beliefs that you don't even know you have, inner context, inner fears, inner thoughts. All of that is inside of us. And unless we actually sit down and do the work and ask the hard question, we won't get to the answer. And then a lot of times when I work with my clients, they'll write love letters to themselves because they have to get out the things that they wish either they were told, the things they wish they would feel, the things that they no longer want to hold on to. They have to write those love letters to themselves to like reprogram what they believe about themselves. And then a lot of my clients will do intentional activities to stretch their worthiness, to stretch their ability to receive love from self and from others. And so sometimes it'll be, as simple as going out and taking themselves out on a date. And I mean, go from head to toe, like dress up, do the makeup, do everything, and go out by yourself. And for some people, that's really hard. Like, I didn't realize how hard that was for people to do that until I started asking people to do that. Sometimes I'll have people do a pamper of themselves, like a pamper mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, whatever they choose. What have you always wanted to do, but you wouldn't allow yourself to do? You haven't given yourself permission to do. How can you do that on all of these planes and then see how that feels and then keep doing more of that? So there's a lot of ways to love on yourself. And I mean, here's the thing. The number one way I think people have to start loving on themselves is to recognize what they believe about their lovableness. Like, how lovable do you feel you are? Because some people truly don't feel they're lovable and they would never admit that out loud. That's something that's hard to say, but a lot of us have grown up believing that we're not lovable at some level. Somewhere, a parent wasn't there, a relationship ended and we didn't believe it should have. Um, ridicule on some level, shame, all these things exist in our lives. And so I always say, let's start with how lovable you feel you are.
Mm.
Like, do you feel you're worthy of love from yourself? And that gets uncomfortable from a lot of people because it's like, wait a minute, like, wait, like, I have to face that. I have to ask myself that. Yeah, that makes me really sad. Yeah.
Well, those are such good points, and I think a lot of people resist being alone and they say, spend the time with yourself. And until you do, you don't even know your own energy. I've been on this journey myself and I just discovered my own energy and I'm like, wow, I feel
Mhm.
really good.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh
I like
my God,
myself.
like, is this me? Is this? And it's in the resisting and I think
Mhm.
like you talked about the shadow work, a lot of people resist it. They don't even want to go there. They don't want to
Yeah.
look back at the childhood. They don't want to think about why have I, been in these kinds of relationships up until now. But when you do, and then on the other side of that is just peace. And it's like, wow, this is
Yeah.
beautiful. And getting to that feeling of bliss by yourself is really empowering. And then it's
Yeah.
like from that place, what can I attract? Like it's,
Yeah.
and then it's like a process of being more selective. Now that I know how beautiful my energy is, who do I want to share this with? Like this is a big
Yeah.
deal, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and so many good tips and so many things came through when you were sharing all of that. And I would love for you to share a little bit more about your process. So I know you have 7 factors of love, and I'd love to hear about those factors of love and why do most relationships fail without these 7 factors?
Yeah, so I want to tell you what the 7 factors are because they really are the foundation for all phases of relationship with self and with couples. So they are attraction, communication, honesty, trust, respect, safety, and vulnerability. And the reason why we feel at the Love Camp, those are the foundational factors that you need to have strong love, and they have subsets too. But it's because without all aspects of those things working in harmony and existing in a relationship, if one or two or several are out, you will feel it. Like, for example, if you don't feel safe in your relationship, it's going to be hard to be honest because you don't feel safe to open up. And if you don't feel safe to open up, your communication is going to be interesting because you're not going to be able to be expressive in such a way that makes you feel seen and heard and received. And so we work hard to make sure that we support individuals and couples who need to identify where in your relationship can be strengthened, and we teach singles how to use them so that going into a relationship, you have really strong boundaries and you make sure that you're looking for these factors. Even with attraction, we teach attraction isn't just on one plane with physical. A lot of people think of physical as the only way to be attracted to someone. And while it is an important component, and we teach about the importance of, giving grace with attraction, especially a lot of our community that we serve is individuals that are 35 and up. There's going to sometimes be some grace, especially when you get into the 40s and the 50s. Come on now, we're all not looking like we were in our 20s. And so we talk about, though, giving yourself grace, be attracted to yourself. But then we also talk about the different ways that attraction can show up. You can be attracted to someone mentally, you can be attracted to someone's heart, you can be attracted to someone's energy. It's not just physical. And when you recognize the beauty of being attracted at an expanded level, then you have deeper connections. So for us, we understand that it's deeper than just superficial. And if all of these factors are working in harmony, you're working towards creating a healthier and a more fulfilling and lasting relationship. And you need them to be able to sustain and have a lasting relationship. We can all create relationships, but if you're not going deeper, you're not trusting at a deep level, you're not constantly showing respect, strengthening your vulnerability, it's difficult to have a lasting relationship because you need those things. And we strive on healthy because there are also couples that have been together for 10 plus years and they're roommates. They're roommates. And I know because I was in that situation too. I was a roommate. And we strive to, we stop that as well. Like we strive for healthy, fulfilling, lasting relationships. And we feel like the 7 factors help you to have all 3 components, not just a lasting relationship, but we want a healthy, fulfilling relationship.
Beautiful. And you mentioned boundaries. I would love to hear your guidance around what kind of boundaries are healthy when you just start dating someone new. What are some rules or things that you can keep in mind? And I mean, maybe this is different for everyone, but just some general guidelines for people who are about to, come back into the dating pool after doing the inner work, after doing the shadow work, and they're like, okay, I'm ready. What kind of boundaries to keep in mind?
I definitely feel like number one is establishing boundaries around being communicative about some things that individuals are doing that don't make you feel good or don't make you feel safe. Like that has to be number one, like early on. If someone that you're interacting with does something and you feel disrespected or disregarded or is a habit that you know doesn't resonate with you, don't sit on that. Have the honest conversation and be loving and be kind, but be assertive with your words so that that individual starts to be taught how you like to be treated, be taught what works for you, what feels good for you. So communication is the number one thing. And the second thing is, I would say, if you start to see things that you know are not within what you know works for you, definitely address it and decide what it is that you want to do about it. Because I think also a lot of times when we're getting to know someone, sometimes we're not comfortable with saying the thing that would either make them be turned off or push them away or things like that. And I think that's a mistake because, again, it's a worthiness conversation. If you know that you're worthy and you know that these are things that don't make you feel good, you have to honor that. You have to honor yourself. So that's the first thing I would say. The other thing I would say as it relates to communication is sometimes you just got to ask the questions like, how does this work for you? Or what's your thoughts or your boundaries around this? Everything from, I don't know, respecting someone's privacy or asking personal questions. There's a whole bunch of boundaries that people have. When I first met my love, we were having a conversation, and I don't remember what we were talking about, but we were talking about something in the African American community, and I said something like, "That's being naive that you feel that way." And he said, "No, I'm not naive. I'm a very intelligent man, and I don't like to be referred to as naive." And that was a hard boundary. And he was kind about it. He wasn't mean or rude, but he definitely was assertive. Like, I know who I am. And just because I don't see it the same way you see it does not make me naive. And you know what? That was really good that he did that because we kept talking. And then I went back to it. I said, wait a minute, let's talk about this. Like, what just happened? And I didn't allow my ego or my insecurities or anything to get into play. I really wanted to understand. Tell me what you're saying. How did you see it? Why did that offend you versus me? And I think that's the other thing. When you're establishing boundaries, you have to be confident enough and secure enough to say when you are sharing a boundary that it's not you being mean or difficult. Because the reason why I think people don't share boundaries is because they either don't value themselves enough, they put other people first, they're concerned about how they're going to be perceived. Now, I do want to say this though. There is a difference between a boundary and a wall. And we talk about that too, because a boundary is meant to support you to establish the way you want to be treated and what feels good to you. A wall is when you don't want anybody in and you don't want to take risk to really establish where a relationship could go. So you have to be careful with making sure you're putting a boundary up, not a wall. And with that being said, I think that communication is the number one thing for sure. Number one.
Beautiful. And I have so many more questions for you. And, I would love for you to share, how can people stay in touch with you and learn more from you? Because I know you have so much to share and so many more tips that we don't have time to get into today. But how can people stay in touch with you and learn more?
So they can definitely follow me on my social media. I have Instagram, and it's called the Love Camp Official. And they can also visit our website, which is thelovecamp.co.
Beautiful. And I will put all her links in the description box below so you can, follow her and stay in touch with her. And thank you so much, Renee, for being with us today. I'm so grateful to know you and learn from you. I'm so happy for you, to be in the relationship you are. And I've witnessed her with her partner, and is a beautiful union. So thank you for
Thank
inspiring
you.
us.
Thank you. You're most welcome. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here, everybody. I hope you join us for next week. I'm going to be talking about decluttering your relationship with money. So that's going to be what we get into next. And make sure to share this video with anybody that you feel could benefit from watching this, and subscribe to our channel so you'll be notified when the videos go live next. Thanks for being here.